Let's get going with the next company here presenting at our Investor Day. We have the honor to have CEO Jesper Söderqvist at Boule Diagnostics. Welcome, Jesper, to this day, and please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you all for joining us here today to learn more about Boule Diagnostics. My name is Jesper Söderqvist, and I am the CEO. I will talk about what makes Boule unique, our priorities going forward, and why the future looks bright. But I will also cover briefly our financial results for 2020 and how we managed a very challenging year with the COVID pandemic. So please, next slide. So Boule is a global niche player that provides near-patient hematology diagnostics or blood testing that allow physicians to directly consult the patients without the need to wait for central laboratory test results. Diagnostics in general is an essential tool to discover, monitor, and treat patients with the relevant care. Blood testing can really help address accelerating healthcare costs by monitoring health and also discover a range of common diseases, including infections. Boule was listed on the Stockholm Stock Exchange in 2010, but our roots go back a long way. Our original products are based on the Swedish automatic blood cell counter that was invented by Erik Uhlin in the 50s. We sell instruments and consumables used in the human and veterinary market. We are globally present in over 100 countries with a strong distributor network. We have multiple products, brands, but our brands are based on the same technology platform, which means that we have several parallel sales channels in several important markets. About 30% of our sales are in the US, while Europe and Asia account for about a quarter each. We have a large installed base of Boule instruments, which means that which is the main driver for our strong and recurring aftermarket sales. In addition, we also sell consumables to other hematology manufacturers. We will start looking at the business and financials in 2020. So please switch to the next slide. So on the top graph, you see the installation of instruments and recurring revenue. During the last 5 years, the growth of the install base has driven the recurring sales of reagents and calibrators. That is the green line in the top graph. But as you can see, in the last year, we have been severely disadvantaged by COVID-19. As many markets closed down, patients' visits stopped and testing basically wasn't there. And that also meant lower sales for us. However, I am convinced that when restrictions are eased, we expect to fairly quickly see a growing revenues again. Also, instrument sales has been difficult last year in spite of new digital sales method. The demand wasn't there in 2020, but we managed to sell around 3,000 instruments, which is about 1,500 instruments less than in 2019. This means that our installed base of active instruments remains stable at around 29,000 instruments. So this said, we still have a very strong position, and once the market gets back to preventive care and normal testing procedures, we could see our sales coming back. So if we switch to the next slide. So to summarize, last year, it was a very tough year with regards to both sales, and we also had a few one-off items affecting our results. And the growth trend we had in 2019 was broken after 3 quarters with large COVID-19 effects. However, less sales and travels have opened up for internal improvements, and we have used this year to strengthen the organization and advance, several, important initiatives for our future. Most importantly, our new platform project. The development of a new instrument platform is the largest investment in Boule's history, and I will come back to this later. Very positive was that we passed a major milestone for this development. With the technology choices we made for that milestone, the technology that we acquired in 2018 became obsolete because it didn't meet our high quality standards, which triggered a write-down of 40 million in the fourth quarter, which glooms our financial results for last fiscal year. During the year, we also increased our presence in Russia, and we will soon start local manufacturing there. So if we now take the next slide and look more in detail, how products and regions were affected by the pandemic. And you can see that all products and all regions were affected. And it started with a large dip in the second quarter. We saw some recovery in the third quarter, but the optimism, I think, that we all felt disappeared when the second, or in some cases, third wave of COVID hit many markets. And sales actually dropped in the fourth quarter compared to the third quarter. But yeah, we have seen the same pattern, among our competitors. So this is really an effect of that. Many of the clinics that use our equipment are closed. If you switch to the next slide, we can also look at our profitability. So as a consequence of low sales, EBIT was impacted, and that's the big effect, is the lower volume. But we also did this write-down due to scrapping of the technology we bought in 2018 that didn't meet our high standards of quality. So that hit our result with 40 million. Adjusted for the one-off items, we reached 8.5% EBIT margin in this very tough year. I would also say that included in the result is also the US payroll protection support that we received to keep all our staff throughout the pandemic. I mean, clearly, we're not meeting our full potential, and we're not satisfied. But I think it shows the resilience of our business model, and I feel confident we will recover quite strongly once COVID-19 is gone. If you switch to the next slide, you can look at our cash flow and our financial position. So in summary, you can say that we have a strong financial position. The business, in spite of drop in sales, generated a positive operating cash flow of 75 million for the full year, with about 1/3 in the fourth quarter. So, and actually, our available liquidity increased by 5 million compared to a year earlier. So I think we should be satisfied with that. So going forward, what is our key differentiators? What makes Boule unique? So let's zoom out on Boule's business and our key differentiators. Boule has 4 key differentiators that can really drive the value of the company. We offer blood diagnostics for near patients, both human and animal care market. We have built strong brands offering very user-friendly and reliable systems. We have a scalable virtual organization allowing us to grow a lot without large increases in investments and personnel, thanks to our indirect sales and service model. And a normal year we have more than 60% in recurring revenue, thanks to our installed base of more than 29,000 instruments. And that has give us reach also across the globe. So what are we doing? So if you take the next slide. So we're in the near patient testing. So in vitro diagnostics is a large growing market. We are, however, a focused niche player, and we offer solutions for near patient diagnostics, which means that we do not compete with the largest companies in hematology that provide equipment for the large central laboratories. Our equipment is available in physician office lab, health centers, and smaller hospitals. And in Sweden, we call them vårdcentraler. We service customers who are in the countryside in emerging economies where they need and depend on robust and reliable instruments. And it's a dynamic market. And I personally believe that the new requirements and new technology will mean that this market will continue to increase in relevance and continue to grow. Continued digitalization and more online doctor will, for example, increase the demand for more local testing, and also maybe at perhaps at location that we're not at all used to today. So let's zoom out on the market. The human market for decentralized near patient diagnostics has a total market value of approximately $650 million, and is expected to grow about 5% per year. The growth drivers are the usual macro factors for healthcare and medical devices, an aging population globally, increased standard of living in emerging economies, so both supply and demand for healthcare increase. We expect the market for near patient diagnostics to have a structural demand-driven growth for many years to come, as it encompasses a lot of benefits, both for the patients and for the healthcare systems. On top of that, new technologies create new opportunities for efficiency, which in turn leads to an increase in test volumes. If you look at the veterinary market, when you include both hematology and clinical chemistry, it's almost as large as the human market. That market is now growing rapidly as many people acquire companion animals, and that's been a strong trend, particularly during the pandemic. I heard from one source that the dog population in Stockholm alone grew by 25% last year. Also, access to insurance provides an increasing demand for veterinary services and testing, and there's a great demand for fast test results. So The veterinary market differs from the human market as the regulatory requirements are much lower. Despite this, the competition is actually less in the veterinary market than in the human market. So what do we do? So we provide CBC, so complete blood count, which means that whole blood is taken from the patients and can, without any pre-treatment, be analyzed by the instrument. The test that the Boule solution performs is called complete blood count, which is in Swedish is usually called blodstatus. The test is one of the more common tests performed and is an effective and inexpensive tool to get quick health status, and is therefore used in both yearly health examinations and diagnosis and follow-up of sick patients. So what our instruments do is that they count the different cell components in the blood, the red and the white blood cells and the platelets, and parameters related to the blood cells. We can also measure hemoglobin. So in total, we get a test result with about 22 parameters in less than a minute. That gives a good idea on the person's health. The test results can, for example, help diagnose anemia by looking at the red blood cells. It can look at the various types of infections, etc., by looking at the white blood cells as they control our immune system. And coagulation disorder can be identified by looking at the platelet distribution. You can read the results directly on the instrument, get the printout at the same time as it is entered into the laboratory information systems that most labs have. And the doctor gets an immediate test result that can consult the patients during the visit without the need to schedule the patients for additional visits. So it's a very efficient and effective test procedure. So this is what we do. We have a very strong product portfolio of 3-part and also 5-part instruments. But now we are developing a new hematology product platform. So if you switch slide. So I said we passed a major milestone in the fourth quarter, and that was thanks to that we during the last year strengthened our organization and really helped to make significant progress on the development on the platform. And with the milestone passed in December, we made all the technology choices, and we could firm up our timeline for the first release. The first release on this platform will be an advanced 5-part human instruments that will be launched by end of 2022. It's a 5-part differential, which means that it has the capability to differentiate the blood cells in 5 different groups. Boule already have a lower end 5-part instrument, and with this new instrument, we get a broader, more competitive portfolio. The 3-part market is bigger, and that's the major revenue source for us. But the 5-part market grows faster, and the prices for both instruments and tests are higher for 5 parts. So clearly, this addition to our product portfolio will really help our growth and profitability going forward. And over time, we will introduce more products based on this platform and also replace existing products. So we are very pleased, with the development and the progress we made on this. So what makes Boule unique? I think Boule is unique in that we have full control over the entire value chain for analysis of blood, because we develop and manufacture the instruments, but we also develop the consumables such as reagents, but also the blood controls and calibrators, and that makes us truly unique in this market. And we have built a strong reputation, and we have strong brands that is known for robust, reliable solutions of very high quality that always deliver accurate results. They're often more expensive than competitors, but thanks to good quality, we still achieve a low life cycle cost. One recognition of our expertise in quality and efficiency is that we both develop and produce consumables for other bigger hematology companies. Switch slide. So if you look at our operations, so sales and service are done by distributors globally. We are present in more than 100 countries, and we have more than 200 loyal distributors. And thanks to our multi-brand strategy, we have very good penetration. Sales take place via several distributors in many markets. And thanks to this indirect business model, growth and management of fluctuations in demand, as this year, can take place without limited investments on Boule's part. This means that there's a good leverage for growth and introduction of new products. Boule also has an efficient and scalable delivery organization with R&D in Sweden and in the USA, and production in Sweden, USA, and soon to start also in Russia. So we switch slide. So a large and growing installed base generate growth of recurring revenue. Sales of consumer generate a higher margin than instrument for many years after the initial installation. So our primary focus areas to grow the installed base is to introduce new products, like the new platform, increase our presence in emerging markets, and also address the veterinary market, which is really an untapped potential for Boule. Today, it accounts for about 10% of our revenue. And this business model that I have really created a stable recurring revenue. And the installed base has grown every year, during the last 10 years, and 2020 was the only exception, really. And I really look forward to when the world will return more back to normal, so we can see a more steady sales again of new instruments. So if we now, as you can see, longer term, we have an attractive plan to grow our business. So let's look at what we will focus on near term. I think everyone is looking now to see what happened with the pandemic and the market recovery. So for our business to return to normal, we depend on the vaccines to stop the virus spreading, and that we also wait to see the markets open up again. We believe that there are continued uncertainties that we will need to deal with. We expect the market to recover during the second half of 2021, but it may take longer to get full back to the former volumes. And what we see is that during the market recovery, there will be challenges of supplies, in particular for transports, which we have experienced. There's also potential risk for supply chain shortages as global demand from all industries will compete for supplies. We have not really seen it in large scales yet. It has happened, but that's something we will monitor very closely until we see that supply and demand are in balance. We see that there are many opportunities for us to address now, and what we will focus on, the next half year or so, is to further increase our digital marketing, enhance our support to distributors to make sure our installed base get back into operation smoothly. We target to start local production in Russia. It was previously in the first quarter, but due to one of our suppliers that had been obliged by the Russian government to produce COVID-related equipment, that equipment is delayed, and we now target to start in the end of the second quarter instead. Last year, we also announced a new supply agreement for one of our larger OEM customers, and during the spring, we will ramp up production of those new consumable products. And then, of course, a lot of our focus will be on our new platform, and we now are working very hard to industrialize the first release that we plan to launch at the end of 2022. So 2021 will be busy, and we have a very solid plan how to get back to growth and profitability. To switch slide. So to summary, 2020 was a very challenging and really a shitty year for us. Boule is not immune to pandemics, but I think that COVID-19 is really a bump on the road. Boule sales will recover. We have a good market position, an attractive business model, and a large installed base that will generate recurring revenue. So even if we don't hit our financial targets this year, I am convinced that we will soon get back to a profitable and growing company again. I should also say that the board has proposed that we will give a dividend for 2020 of 0.55 SEK per share to be decided on at the general meeting in May. So I think that actually concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your attention and interest in Boule, and I welcome questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesper, for your presentation. Firstly, I think I'll start with a question. You've been into Boule for almost a year now, since you took over as a CEO. I think I asked you this question when you started out as CEO as well, but what do you think that you highlighted some of the achievements you've made during this year, but what has really been a surprise for you now, looking back for the last year about Boule as an organization?
Well, I think, everything with the pandemic, I think, has surprised me
Yeah.
that it would take so long. And I'm actually say that I'm surprised that things actually work quite well, despite that we haven't been able to travel. I only made one trip, as a CEO of a new company, and that was to US like a month ago. So, but I think we have managed the, working digitally very well. And, clearly we've been, the loss in sales we saw last year was really because the demand wasn't there, and that's really outside our control. But apart from that, I think we have managed to keep our operations going. We have managed to stay in touch with our distributors. We are developing our sales and training programs digitally. And I must say that we have started up a manufacturing site in Russia without any possibility to travel at all. So it's both hiring, setting up, everything has been done using Teams. So I think that's a great achievement, and I think so. I'm surprised about that the pandemic has lasted so long, and but still that we have managed so well, despite some of the challenges.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and very interesting to see your comments in conjunction with the Q4 result about the new platform that you intend to launch by the end of 22. Could you give us perhaps some more indications, and it would be interested to see or hear from you the main highlights of the new platform, what you see of a long-term potential from this specific platform into the future for Boule?
Well, I think if you look at take first from the market perspective, I think it's our three-part instruments are are market leaders in many of the markets and are very well positioned. And I think many of our distributors have asked us to make sure that we widen our product portfolio also with 5-part instruments. So I think there is a demand for those 5-part instruments. And we see that it's a market that grows faster than our 3-part market. So there is a demand. It gives us access to a bigger market. So I think that's important. It's an advanced instrument, meaning that we're working a lot with the user experience, user interfaces, modern software. Also making sure that we improve connectivity from remote service, etc. So, and it's a really future-proof instrument. And also bear in mind that this is not just about one release. This is a product platform which is very modular, which will enable us to develop further, other type of instruments using the same platform, in a very cost-effective way. So I'm very very pleased and to see the progress. And I think it's also it will be very good for Boule also to have a new modern product platform for the future.
Yeah. No, thanks, Jesper. That sounds very promising. Just touching upon the competitive landscape also now after a year with the pandemic surrounding us. Have you seen any increased competition moving towards your own niche? From, let's say, larger players out there within diagnostics, or how would you describe the current situation, the current here now, 1 year after the pandemic has been with us?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit difficult to compare ourselves with our product portfolio because with other companies, but I would say that we haven't seen any shift in market shares in any of the markets. I would say I think it's same kind of, we were down about 20% in revenue. And for comparable businesses or for our competitors, we have seen similar figures. So I think it would be 2021 that really, will make the difference. Because I think it's clear that the world is not going back to normal. I mean, the big trade shows, traveling to see clients, etc., is not the way that you will do marketing and sales. So we are investing now and really moving forward with our digital efforts to to reach out, both in terms marketing, sales, but it's also very importantly training to our distributors and also to end users. So we're launching something we call the Boule Academy. So I think it's 2021 will be the year that where you can gain or lose market share.
Yeah. I think time is running out, Jesper, for this time. Thank you very much for participating today, and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening and your interest in Boule. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.